Hi, my name's Anushka. I am a tenant at 42 Bedford Row. That is a common law set, but I practice predominantly in family law. I did pupillage in 2010 and became a tenant at 42 in 2011. Prior to coming to the bar, I did history at university and then did the GDL conversion course and the BBC as it then was.
I'm Harry Nosworthy. I'm a tenant at 4 Paper Buildings. It's an exclusively family practicing set, and the work really encompasses children law, both private law and care proceedings, public law, and also financial remedy work, which is the division of financial assets on separation or divorce. We also do a lot of work in child abduction as well, and I did my pupillage there in 2010, and that's me. Yeah.
My name is Tom Dance. I am at 1 Kingsbench Walk. I've just finished pupillage, so I've been a tenant for about 3 or 4 months, maybe a bit longer. 1 KBW does all sorts of family law, every specialism. I did my pupillage there, as I said. I did a law degree, and yeah, that's probably about enough for my background.
I'm Malek Daud. I was called in 1991. I've been a pupil supervisor since 1999. I'm at Garden Court Chambers. We are about 200 strong, multidisciplinary. Started off life doing other things, but I've been a family specialist for about 15 years. The thing that joins the theme that joins our practice groups together is civil liberties and human rights. It's the role of the state and the individual. So in family law, predominantly we do care proceedings, which is and other associated proceedings, which involve the state regulating and removing children from their parents. Hand you back.
So I think my role now is to give you a very brief introduction to family law. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I should imagine, given that you're here, you sort of know about it a little bit anyway. And then we're going to run through a really exciting checklist of bullet points that contain some answers to questions that you may have. But we're then going to hopefully give you lots of time to ask piercing questions of us and put us on the spot. Well, I might start by saying that I never really intended to get into family law, nor even go to the bar. So I don't know how far down the decision-making route you all are, but I was sitting in Paris working in a restaurant, wanting to be a chef, and then decided that that wasn't going to work out. So that phase has been buried under the carpet from now on, and I'm now a very serious barrister. But there's no real proper route into the bar or the family law bar. My co-pupil, when I was a pupil, had done 10 years in the city in a management consultancy firm and had come to the end of her tether and came to the family bar. I came, as I say, from that background, but I'm practically fresh out of university. So there is no real route, and there's nothing that you must feel you have to do in order to come to the family bar. Why I decided to come, I'm not really sure. I wanted to go to court. I liked the idea of being a barrister, and family law offers you an opportunity to go to court almost every day. I do, and hopefully as my practice grows, then the cases that I do grow with it, and they're important cases. You meet, frankly, some pretty weird people. You also meet some very lovely people, but on a daily basis you are never short of a few surprises. The judges are all very good and very interesting. You go to some interesting courts around the country. I spend lots of my time in Slough County Court as much as I spend my time in the Principal Registry in High Holborn, and sometimes doing international child abduction in the Royal Courts of Justice in London. They are chalk and cheese in terms of how you feel when you walk through the door of that building. You feel very much like you're in silk when you walk in the RCJ, when you walk into Slough, less so. But it's a fascinating career. It's certainly still interesting me, but I obviously have only been doing it for 6 months. But I enjoyed Pupilage very much, and it's a very challenging career, and I hopefully will be in it for some time to come. That will probably be enough from me. Shall we now go through the checklist? What's first on our list, Malek?
Why you chose the bar in particular? Why do you choose the relevant area of practice? Well, I think you've.
Well, I think I've probably covered that. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. It's very client-facing, family law. I mean, that half the job is managing your client, frankly, because they've probably got ideas above. From wherever, the internet, about what's actually going to happen in the case, and you have to give them some pretty firm advice sometimes about what is actually going to happen, and make sure they're okay. It's not a very nice day for any of them. They never want to be there, and it's always very emotional for them.
Essentially, the work we do covers really 4 main areas, and that is children law work, which encompasses both private law children, which is disputes between parents over contact and residence arrangements with their children, and then the other side of children work, which is care proceedings, and certainly the work that my sister chambers does encompasses all kinds of representation, from representing parents to local authorities and appearing on behalf of the child through their guardian as well. So it's very varied. The other 2 areas that this kind of work includes is financial remedy work, which, as I said earlier, is dealing with the financial arrangements upon divorce or separation, and can also include some trust work as well. So again, it's quite a varied area. It's quite a wide area. And lastly, really, this is an area of work that certainly my chambers does a lot of, is the international movement of children, whether that be abduction or applications for permission to relocate in different countries with a child. So it's quite wide-ranging, and the attraction for me certainly is that no day is the same. So one day you might be representing a local authority seeking to remove a child into care, and the next day you're dealing with a businessman and going through his company accounts, trying to work out where certain assets are. So it keeps you on your toes, I always think, and it can be unpredictable. It can be really unpredictable. Sometimes you don't get your papers for the next day until 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the evening, and then you're up quite late or up early to prepare it. But that is just the nature of the job, and it can be exciting, and I find that quite attractive, really.
For my part, I chose really early on that I wanted to go down the bar route rather than the solicitor route. I watched far too many courtroom dramas, I think, as a child, and I really wanted to be in court doing the advocacy, and it seemed to me at that time that the best way of doing that was by becoming a barrister. Although that is changing with time, solicitors are doing more advocacy work. I say that, but I never intended to be a family law barrister. I applied to my chambers for pupillage wanting to do clinical negligence and personal injury work. I knew that in our pupillage you had to do family work as part of the pupillage because that's such an important part of our chambers practice areas. But I never had any intention of pursuing it beyond that. But as it happened, I maintained a broad family practice after I became a tenant. Broad practice after I became a tenant, and most of that has ended up being family work. And I can't really say that there's much rhyme or reason for that. You will find, I think, sometimes if you start with a broad practice, you do just end up going one way. That's the area that maybe you're suited to in personality, or solicitors in that area happen to like you. There can be all sorts of reasons, but that's how I've ended up where I am, and so there was a lot of decision making early on and actually not very much decision making later
on. For me it was very different because it was a long time ago and the market was very different. I spent 2 weeks in a solicitor's office in my second year at university, and I realised I couldn't do that, and I was doing a law degree. And one of the things that made it clear to me is that I wanted to be an advocate. So then I went in what was then doing the highly unusual thing of applying to do a mini pupillage. And life just shows you how different it is. When I turned up at bar school, I was the only person I met who'd done a mini pupillage. And I thought that this was the way forward. But the reality is I started off life as a housing barrister. I did housing almost exclusively for about 5 years. The reality is of practice at the bar is that you end up, just as Anushka said, you end up doing different things. Elizabeth Butler Slough said to me, who was the president of the family division, she's now in the House of Lords, Baroness Butler Slough. She started off life doing transport haulage, and she was the queen of licensing, because when she started practice, that was a huge area of law. Things changed. Chambers changed. People started sending her work. One of the things that I think that, and this comes to a later bullet point, but one of the things that's terribly important is to remember, one, it's a job, two, you are providing a service, and you need a certain amount of flexibility. You've got to be, a legal mind is a transferable mind. It's an old-fashioned mantra, but it's true. You need to be able to roll with the punches. And I think for most people who've been at the bar for any length of time, your career moves in very strange ways, sometimes with a little guidance from you, sometimes, despite your best efforts, they move in a different way, and you need to be able to roll with them. So that mental flexibility is something that you need to be willing to engage in. Anyway, the next bullet point is, with hindsight, anything that you'd wish you'd known, done or said when you were applying for pupillage or choosing your career path. I've linked this up with another point which says, what are the lifestyle implications of this area of practice? Now, people who come to the bar there are many people from very, very privileged backgrounds. They are not the majority, surprisingly enough, despite what your perceptions might be. The bar really is a meritocracy, and you will be accepted wherever you go on the basis of the jobs that you can do. That's the thing that I was very worried about, because I didn't come from a traditional background, and I've never been a traditionalist, and I was very worried about that. When I was applying for pupillage, it was the time of Section 28, some of you, of the Local Government Act, where local government was banned from promoting homosexuality as a lifestyle choice, or a valid family arrangement, I think was the wording. And I was very worried that as an out gay man, that might be difficult for me at the bar, because the bar was seen as a very traditional place. And in fact, it isn't. I was out on my application forms, but that's because somebody very wise said to me, you need to be yourself, and you need to sell you. You need to sell the whole package. If you hide something, it comes across, because you're not selling the whole you. And the automatic assumption is the thing that you're hiding is that you're not very good at what you do. And that's the thing that I would, if I'd known that and had the confidence of that then, I think the whole process would have been a lot easier. You have to have confidence in who you are. The bar is a profession of great risk, but great reward. The competition is incredibly fierce. When I did the bar exam, there was only one place in the country you could do it. It was London. You had to move to London. There were 900 of us doing the bar exam. They told us in our first week, 600 of you will pass, 300 of you will get pupillage, 150 of you will get tenancies. I don't think the size of the practicing bar has changed that much in the last 23 years. What has changed is the number of people who do what is now the BVC. I think that's still what it's called.
BPTC.
That's the one. Be kind to grandpa. So But I think that market forces, this is the competition that you will set yourself up for. And in my tutor group of 12, there are only 2 members who are still practicing at the bar. Of my circle of friends that I hung out with at bar school, and there were about 25 of us, I am the only one who is still in practice. There is an attrition. The bar, as I said, it is a profession of great risk but great reward. And you need simple things. Never make any social arrangements in the week, because it's not going to. You will piss all your friends off, because something will happen. Papers will come in late. If you're a pupil, somebody will say to you, "Can you just do a piece of research? Can you just do this?" You have to ring up and say, "I'm not coming." And then you feel really resentful about it. The other thing is, if you are in court 5 days a week, you need to work 6 days a week. If you're in court on Monday, you need to work Sunday. Because there is no, I'm having a great weekend and I'll kind of wing it first thing Monday morning and I'll ease myself into the day. It doesn't work like that. So those are the sorts of things that you need to prepare yourself for. If you're up for that, it is a profession of great reward. If you're not up for it, well, quite frankly, given the amount of debt that you guys get yourself into, save yourself.
I think it's also important to, and looking back, I didn't really realise this at the time, but that often you're placed in a situation where you're dealing with someone else's emergency. Their life is falling apart as a result of whatever litigation they may be involved in. Typically where you're representing a parent, they're having their child removed from their care, and they're looking to you to resolve this problem. And often you can't do that. But they're also looking to you to be a befriender, to often take almost the role of a social worker with them, as well as being the advocate and advising them. And the crux of it really is to remain professional throughout that. And it's difficult because you're dealing with someone who is going to be incredibly emotive, and you're trying to get the relevant information from them so you can advise them and represent them properly. And often it's about being very well prepared and keeping a level head in those situations, and providing reassurance to that individual that you can assist them. And I think I wasn't aware of how many of those kind of skills were really required when I made my applications.
I think following on from that, I think this also links to what Malek already said, which is that you have to be true to yourself when you're making the applications, and you have to be, I think, quite self-aware of yourself. I think you have to assess your own abilities quite severely to know whether you are suited to a particular area, whether you're suited to a particular chambers. It can be quite a difficult process to go through. Sometimes you have to be quite hard on yourself. But at other times, you really have to maybe advocate your strengths beyond what feels comfortable. I think I found very difficult in the application process being boastful about things that I'd done. It didn't come naturally to me, and I remember reading a friend's application process and really feeling quite uncomfortable reading it, because it really was out there. It was like, I've done this and I've done that and I'm great, and I found that quite difficult. But everyone's doing it, and so where you've got strengths, you've really got to show them off. And I think at times I was a bit shy about doing that, and in retrospect I'd be a bit more open about that. And equally, where I'm not good at something, I wish I'd been harder on myself and said, well, actually, maybe I'm not suited to doing that area of law, because as Harry says, for example, with family law, there is a lot involved in the work that we do. It's more than being a lawyer. It is about being a social worker, a counsellor. I mean, there's so much that goes into it. You've got to be patient. And if that's not a skill that you possess, then perhaps this area isn't for you. So I think it's about assessing yourself quite well.
I agree. And just to reiterate that, I was asked by a mini pupil last week whether it was a problem that he had extracurricular interests and hadn't done enough mini pupilages. Well, he'd done 7 mini pupilages, which frankly to me seemed an extraordinary number of mini pupilages. And I said, and I stand by it, that it's very important to try and set yourself out from the crowd. And practically, when you want to apply for pupillage and you want to get pupillage, you're in a fight with everyone else who's also applying. So you need to set yourself out from them. And if you have some weird and wonderful extracurricular interests, don't shy away from it thinking that doesn't show an interest in the family law bar, because frankly, you're not expected to know everything that there is to know about the Hague Convention or about the Children Act now. That comes later. It's about making sure that you're the right person for that chambers and for the sphere. It might be you're the wrong person for one chambers and the right person for another one. When you go to pupillage interviews and you write applications, it's not very nice because you're writing blind. You don't really know what they're looking for. You've got an idea, and you then go to an interview that you think you're going to absolutely nail, and you come out of it thinking, I wasn't getting anything from that. And you go to another one that goes really well for no apparent reason. And it's all about personalities and about how well you suit certain chambers and family law. So as much as you can, as I think everyone said, try and make sure you think about that and what it is that you can start tweaking on your CV or doing a bit more of, or where my weaknesses lie. But because it is unfortunately a rather unpleasant game, and to win it you have to make sure that you're playing as hard and as strong as possible. Have we exhausted our checklist?
I think the last thing we
We've got
haven't,
10 minutes,
and I think we're going to get rid of some of the other points because I want to leave some time for questions. But the last thing is key skills and personality qualities you think that are needed to succeed in this area, and any personal qualities that would make it very hard to succeed in this area of law. If you're coming to the bar, you need to have a capacity for hard work, and it's feast or famine. You need to be able to cope with having nothing to do at 2:30. And at 4:30, you need to drop everything and work. You need to have a very good short-term memory because you need to assimilate. You need to be analytical. Here are the papers. Here's 3 lever arch files. Find out what the issues are, apply the relevant law, and go off and represent your client. So you need to have those analytical skills. You need strong shoulders and a back because you will be humping papers. Lever arch files full. And they will do terrible things to your suits. They will do terrible things to your back. You need to start working on your core strength now. It's the one thing I tell all my pupils, go to Pilates. Because, you know what, grandpa's back is not pretty. So, because you will be regularly carrying 70 to 100 pounds worth of papers. You will join the bar, see the world. You will be spending time going to Coventry, Canterbury, Exeter, Bristol. There are very, very few people who are in London chambers and have just a London practice, because that's just not the way the profession works. You need to be prepared to travel. Get up, get a train. You've been up 5 hours, you arrive at court, and then your day starts. Flexible to respond to market forces. In family law, compassion. People are in crisis. Everybody who litigate because they're in crisis. Family law, in whatever branch of the family law it is a family in crisis. They have nowhere to go. They're angry, they're upset, they'll cry all over you. Put money on it. Your suit has just come out of the dry cleaner and somebody cries and snots all over it. That's the deal. If you're not prepared for it, you need a different area of law.
I entirely agree. I think compassion is one of the most important skills that you need in a family law practice area, you've got to be sympathetic, you've got to be patient, you've got to be good at listening to people go on about the same thing for hours, you've got to be good at relating to the situation that they're in. And then you've got to be able, you've got to obviously be articulate, but you've also got to be able to explain the same thing to somebody who doesn't want to listen in 10 different ways, which is what I spend most of my time doing. And so it does require compassion and patience, and I think those are key skills to this area. In terms of what makes it hard to succeed, I think Malek's already summed it up. You've got to be flexible, so the opposite of that is being inflexible. If you're not willing to get up early to go to Portsmouth for 9 a.m, you're going to struggle because you will have to do it. If you've got plans at 6 o'clock and your client's crying at you at 5:30, tough. You're going to have to get used to that. You've got to be flexible. So if you're not one of those people that can cope with things changing at the last minute, things messing with your plans, or eating into time where you want to be preparing for tomorrow's case, if you don't like late nights, you're probably going to struggle with that as well, because there are going to be some nights where you get your papers really late, or they're couriered to you at 10 p.m, which I've had before, and you've got to stay up and you've got to work and then get up early to get to court. You've got to be flexible. So I think that would be my key word for what we do.
Anything to add, or should we open it
Nothing
to
further
questions?
to add from me, except the fact that it don't feel we're being too negative. We're trying to be realistic. It is quite fun. I certainly have a great time, so it's good.